In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Mike Eilertsen about why you shouldn't hire people just like you. Hello and welcome to session 26 of the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I am your host, Turndog, and on this occasion I speak to the South African maestro Mike Eilertsen about why hiring people just like you isn't always the best way to go. As most of my interviews are, it's for my book, The Successful Mistake, which is a collection of chapters about an entrepreneur's grandest faux pas and how they turn them around. I hope you will join me on that journey. Be sure to head over to bit.ly/purplecoffee26 and you'll be able to sign up for exclusive Successful Mistake updates and eventually get free books and goodies and access that nobody else will have. But what about today's interview with Mike Eilertsen? Well, it's a fine one indeed, and it's all about hiring people just like you. Although you may want to have a company full of people just like you who have a similar kind of mentality and a similar kind of energy, it isn't always the way to go. For Mike, he hired folk who were fantastic at selling things, but there was few people left to actually follow up and do the grinding work. As such, they were selling and growing, but they were letting people down and cash flow wasn't great and there was no one organising the back end. So it taught him some valuable lessons indeed that a business needs to have a variety of different minds. However, you also need to make sure that those coming into the business align with the culture. And I think this is something that Mike took a great deal from the mistake, because it made sure that he aligned the culture with everyone and everything, and it allowed him to really drill down and see what they're good at and what they aren't. But I won't go on and on and on because we have an interview to listen to. Oh yes, Mike and me, we sat down over Skype some many months ago, and it's one I continue to rewatch time and time again. Some great quotes, so be sure to get out a pen and paper and be ready to jot some things down. But you may be wondering who this Mike fellow is, so I've jotted down some notes on my iPhone in a way a storyteller like myself can, and hopefully you will understand a little more about Mr. Eilertsen. You ready? Good. Mike Eilertsen with his blue eyes and blonde hair. We all have visions of what the stereotypical entrepreneur looks like and sounds like and acts like, and Mike, my wonderful misfit peeps, fits into this dreamy dream rather well. Young and energetic with several businesses under his belt, Mike proudly stands among the serial entrepreneur crowd, bossing it in South Africa like a very true boss. With vision and vigour and a special kind of room, Mike attacks each day with a unique and memorable twist. There's plenty of people you can listen to and learn from, and Mike's one of them. But just don't blame me when you get all googly-eyed and lost in his South African tones. Sorry, that was a truly terrible impersonation. I apologise to anyone watching from South Africa. Here's the interview.
I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Eilertsen today, who's founder of Live Out Loud, a South African luxury brand company. So, Mike, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Matthew, thank you for having us, and congrats on your new novel. It is always great to be dealing with other entrepreneurs and people who are pioneering in their own right. So, we're very honored to be on your show.
Thank you very much. It's been a fantastic journey for me so far, and I'm excited to hear your insight. This interview is indeed for The Successful Mistake, the book I'm currently working on, and we're going to get a bit of an interview regarding the mistakes that Mike has made and how he's overcome them. But to start with, Mike, please give us a bit of an overview of who you are and what it is that you do in your entrepreneurial world.
Well, my name is Mike, as Matthew's mentioned, and I'm really a serial entrepreneur. I'm someone who by nature loves to start new businesses, pioneer new industries, and the type of businesses that I've been involved on have been really instrumental in challenging the norms of specific industries. So if something is done a specific way, we've really had the habit of going into those areas, turning that industry on its head and overnight just recreating and redefining the rules of engagement there. And as such, 5 years ago, we launched a new brand called Live Out Loud. We went into the publishing space. Overnight, we had turned that industry, it really challenged a lot of the norms in that space. And from there, we ended up launching other groups that were in line with that. Live Out Loud at the time targeted South Africa's millionaires, people who think differently, who drum to their own beats, really the thought leaders of Africa, and people who very often than not, because of their attitude and their outlooks and their ability to work hard, ended up really making a name for themselves. So that is where the basis of the magazine really and the voice of the magazine resided. But we realized early on that you can't just be a magazine anymore like that. You've got to offer something else. You've got to be different. So we then opened up an events company called Live Out Loud Events. Live Out Loud Events' key job was that to take this lifestyle that the magazine represented, to take these elaborate sort of viewpoints and turn them into functions that were one of a kind, things that had never taken place in this country before, things that were deemed as being impossible. Those were the sort of playground that Live Out Loud Events would end up playing with them. And subsequent to that, we've opened up travel agencies. We've now opened up an application called Play Out Loud. And everything that we're doing is just really targets that really pioneering mindset that, if we're not the first or the only, we don't want to be doing it.
This is the kind of branding that I absolutely adore, where you start off with one area in your occasion, publishing, but then you see that market, you interview the right people, you meet the right people, and you're able then to take that into new markets, and you've expanded the brand in such an amazing way. And it, like we said just before we started recording, South Africa's got such a, I suppose, captured market, and it's there for you to kind of take over and just sort of do it in the best possible manner. And I'm sure the 2013 and beyond is exceptionally exciting for you.
You actually mentioned something there that I just want to quickly elaborate on, is that I think the difference in the South African mindset right now is that, if you go through you're getting your education, and if your marks aren't good enough, you can't become the doctor, the engineer, the lawyer. And as a result, the general South African who hasn't had the education opportunities that some of the other folk have had locally here, then end up saying, well, what else do I have to do? Well, I have to open up a business in order to survive. And that is mentality that unfortunately we are really up against. I put a lot of work in socially to be able to challenge that sort of mindset, because to be an entrepreneur, you cannot go in with that ability to go, I want to survive. You have to go with that ability saying, I want to thrive. I want to own this space. It's not about just paying the bills, but really growing a product. It's not about being, trying to get through every month, but really being able to own space, to be the best within your market, and be able to take on the bigger guys playing there. And that is a mindset that local South Africans are finding it difficult to change. But as a result, for the people who have changed and the early adopters, they get to really in those areas.
That's fantastic to hear. And like you say, it's sometimes if you go in with just that mindset of, I just want to get by and kind of live a nice, comfortable life, that can be very counterproductive, really. And you can end up actually failing because of that. But if you go in with the idea of succeeding and really becoming one of the best, then the sky's the limit. There is no ceiling.
I'm actually, you've said it so perfectly, Matthew, there is that I think you've got to go in to end up saying, I'm going to be the best, and not the best within my city, but the best within my province, and then not the best within my province, but the best within my country. And every time you really got it, as big a cost, as big as the shadow you cast, you will ultimately grow into that. And you just touched on something there that really has been a key quote of mine since day one. And really early on, I was probably in about grade 7, as you guys in the UK refer to as. And when I was driving by, and we saw the beautiful billboard on the side of the road. And the billboard said, the sky's the limit. And then at the very bottom of it, it said, but who you to limit me to the sky? And I think sort of mentality that you've got to really adopt. There is no limitations other than the ones we place in ourselves. And I think that anyone in business who goes out that mindset will make a success of themselves.
Absolutely, and that's one of the great things about being an entrepreneur. You create your own ceiling. There is no rules to play to, really. You get to create your own world. Well, I'm sure the people listening and watching to this will learn a great deal from your young entrepreneurial mind. So let's get going, and tell us a little bit to begin with about that big mistake that you've made in business. Tell us the tale behind it, what happened, and how it came about.
I would love to say, Matthew, that there was only one big mistake. There have actually been several. And all of them, if I could have gone back and changed, I think that so much more would have been played out differently. But as you say, I think that the life experience at the end of the day is the best teacher of all. And the first thing that I'd really say to would-be business owners is that you've got to be so wary of employing your clone. It happens so often in our space. If you are an extroverted type of personality, you want other people who are extroverted and outgoing and gregarious in their nature. And so you start developing, employing people with a very similar skill set. The same if you're logical, if you're an analytical mind, you're going to appeal to the more analytical, logical sort of a mindset. And as a result, you don't get those big thinkers or those big visionaries within your business. So very early on now, when I employed my first 40, 50 individuals, that first business that I landed up bringing out, unfortunately, only had a very specific skill set. We were brilliant at talking the game. We were brilliant at our vision and getting out there. But unfortunately, we didn't have the follow-through, the number crunches, the people that really made sure that the substance was there. And that was one of my first lessons I'd land up saying to would-be entrepreneurs is be careful not to employ your clone. Ensure that you have a diverse skill set in anything. Take what your personality is and ensure that you fill your organization with every personality other than what you have already. So to avoid that limited skill set. So that would be definitely one of them. The second one I would definitely add to that is the importance of not just a bookkeeper, but really a financial officer. Someone who clearly understands the numbers, someone who can advise you as you're going on. Because, the type of, when we're entrepreneurs, you want to get out there, you want to explode onto the scene, you want to get out there quickly. And as a result, you very often end up in, over spending and not managing your cash flow correctly. As we all know, 90% of businesses die in year one, and a further 8-9% of them die in year two, and virtually less than 1% of them make it to year five. And I think the key reason is just mismanagement of cash flow. They have the captive market, they have a great product, but they don't necessarily have their number two being a financial accountant who advises them accordingly. Going to add anything on there, man?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, like, there's the old cliche of cash flow is king, isn't it? It's you can be a company worth absolutely millions, and it just means nothing because the cash flow is not there, and eventually it catches up on you.
And that is why I would always say, after the second person you've got to employ is someone who's just absolutely adept in bookkeeping, someone who's very strong in those areas, and it definitely something that we I'd look at encouraging. I think the next thing to be aware of is that, we are all taught from an early age. We've all read the Branson books, the huge, larger-than-life success stories. And you get this impression that you want to go out there and own an empire instantly. And you just want to go out and employ people and go over, and get this empire going. And I think that is a key mistake, because you've got to understand that you've only got to be, grow every day. And you've got to grow into your business. And you've got to grow into that empire type of perception. And if, as a result of that, it is okay to start off selling something on the side of the road and to grow from there into your first offices, into your first employees. As long as every day you are going out and you're having some form of growth, it is all right. Understand the empire will follow. Understand, the employees will come. Don't be too over eager to commit to expense. Rather grow out of the success of yesterday and out of the profits of yesterday than overcommit yourself. Because once again, that's where your cash flow issues will come into play.
Absolutely. So if we can go back to the employee stance, because this is an interesting one. Like you say, you started off, you're a new entrepreneur, you're full of vigor, and you go after the people who are just like you, people who, I suppose, sing your kind of tune. And that's a natural human occurrence. We always cling to those who we are comfortable with. So was it a case of that you hired your first employees of a similar age, of a similar style, and you were all ultimately doing the same job and neglecting other parts of the business?
100%, Matthew.
So what kind of effect did that have sort of on the business as a whole? Were you finding that it was affecting your clients? Were you mismanaging people? Was it affecting things like cash? Was it putting stress on yourself as the entrepreneur, the owner? What were the feelings going through at this particular time?
What happened in our particular situation was that overnight we brought in these big thinkers, these people who could go out and land business, and the type of personality that they had is really described as a hunter type of personality. And the difficulty is that we didn't have the farmers, we didn't have the people. Now that we've landed the big contract, the really large enough thing, to really hand it over So as a result, as I said, we exploded onto the scene. We landed every big international client thereafter. And we found ourselves scrambling very soon thereafter to be able to just to manage those clients, let alone meet the expectation that we had created. And as I said, if it wasn't for some really good talking and our commitment to a relationship, we actually would have closed the company very early on from that stage. So overnight, we had to tell them that there would be serious change. We went out and employed incredibly strong administrative individuals, incredibly strong people who would go in and really undertake the brands that we represented. And when that, it was a very touch and go period for us. And from that period, and that was the one side of it. The other side of it is that being a salesperson, being someone who numbers don't really appeal to, those are the nitty gritties. Those are the type of things that really distracted you from the vision of what you were trying to achieve. And as a result, we didn't have this correct financial control. So I would go out, wanting to immediately employ 40 individuals, and I didn't have a handbrake or a clutch of an accountant to be able to say, hold on, let's only employ 25 of them and bring in the next 15 the following month. And as a result, as I said, it allowed us to explode onto scene. And I don't know if we could have done it differently, but knowing that now, I really understood, the crucialness of what having an effective controller, effective skill set within the business would have been. So I think that is the one side. The other side, though, is although you need to have a diverse skill sets, your culture has to be absolutely the same. You've got to all have that same cultural vision and that same sort of understanding. Very often in Live Out Loud, we have found people who are phenomenal at their jobs, absolutely amazing at executing what their role was, but they didn't suit the culture of the company that we represented. And unfortunately, culture is everything when it comes to a company. It is really, at the end of the day, what is left after you take away the products and all the flashy things. The culture is what really will make the company survive in the 21st century. And as a result of that, it is not necessarily always about the skill sets, but really about the type of culture that you're fostering, and do these people fit within their culture.
That's so interesting what you say, because it is one of the biggest things of any successful company is that balance between having a culture, making sure there's that consistent message coming through and everyone's singing the same tune. But there's a variety of skill sets, because you need the salesperson, you need the creative mind, you need the number cruncher, you need that strict boss who will just say no when it needs to be said no. You need all these pieces, but they all need to be singing to the same tune. And that must have been very difficult for you to find. You were in one extreme, and it would have been so easy for you to go to the other extreme, where you just hired fantastically talented individuals, but people who were all wanting to do their own thing. They didn't really kind of buy into the concept that was Live Out Loud, and the culture would have been ripped apart. And that would have had equally an adverse effect as the beginning sense, where everyone was doing the same thing.
You got a spot on over there. You really elaborate on culture is a key component of successful business. And particularly when it was someone like our type of company, where there were two things that were instrumental for us, is that to be the best, you have to employ the best. End of story. If you want to be the second best, you employ the second best. And to go out there, and the best doesn't always mean the most expensive. The best means the type of people that are entrepreneurs in their own capacity. I'm actually reading a lot on the memoirs of great conquerors and what they did at the moment to really, what was the thing that allowed them to conquer most of the known world at the time. And one of them that Genghis Khan did that I thought was absolutely fascinating is that before then, there was always a monarchy and a single decision maker when it came to a battle. And when that general would send out signals, and each of those armies could only, they would do something, then they'd wait for the next order, and then they'd do something. So it was very disjointed, and they didn't have the opportunity to really take on opportunities that they faced themselves. And I think a lot of organizations are like that. Organizations have a single CEO, and he did that. No department does anything without the blessing of the CEO, without the knowledge of the CEO. And unfortunately, in business in this modern day has changed considerably. Each individual department to work as independent companies, to have independent leaders there, to have people who are thinking in the same way you're thinking. All they've got to do is buy into your general strategy. What is it that we're going out to achieve this year? But how they do it is not up to you, it is up to them. And I think these days you've really got to empower your individuals. So it's not only getting a skill set, it's not only ensuring that culture is there, but ensuring that you empower those individuals to be able to make those decisions at those crucial moments, and to be able to really get that ideal opportunity and leverage that opportunity to its full extent.
That's absolutely fascinating, and that's so good to hear, because that's a very proactive mindset to have. Because, like you say, every company is a little bit different. So it's all about trying to find a culture that works for you, a process that works for you. And it sounds like those initial mistakes have made you really sit down and think, right, what is the Live Out Loud culture? Who needs to fit into this? What pieces of a puzzle? Bring in the right people. We'll go out there and find the right person, whether they're just left university or whether they've been in employment for 30 years. Let's get the right people in, and then let's give them the power to do their job that they see fit. And it allows people to be accountable. And I think that's when businesses are able to thrive, because people aren't always second guessing and going, well, is the big boss man going to hate me doing this? If you've got the power to do something, you can do it with freedom.
Well, Matthew, as I said, you in so many ways, your instinct in business I can see immediately, because your key word there that was really a big one, is that with this entitlement and this authority, that you have to equally have the accountability. Yeah. So for the individual, yes, they may have a big title. Yes, they have divisions, and yes, their divisions are empowered, and everyone can do or take hold of an opportunity. But they've also got to understand at the end of the day that there will be a form of accountability that goes with that. So that it is such a yin-yang and such an important one to also carry out, to give them the power, to give them this opportunity, to allow them to take what has to be, to take the opportunities that show themselves. But in saying that, for them to ensure that they're accountable to the numbers, accountable to the overall vision of the business. And yeah, it's a very interesting act, balancing act.
It is a very interesting one indeed. I would imagine that this has been one of the keys for you that has allowed you to expand in the last few years to, the travel agent side of things, to all these different types of experiences. Has this kind of been the key, that you've brought in the right people for a particular sector and then gone, right, go with it, and let's kind of keep it to the vision, and let's take on this market, and allowed people to sort of do their thing and take it down that particular road?
100% correct. I've always said that I don't work with a bunch of colleagues. I work with a whole bunch of partners, and they think the same way, they act the same way, and they just have that larger than life sort of a vision and look on life as a whole. So yeah, I think that's the key thing, is that gone are the days where you're wanting a 9-to-5 sort of individual, someone who only thinks within the confines of what their job description is. These days, you want to be able to get someone to arrive within a company and say, there's your desk. The sky's the limit. What are you going to do for us? How are you going to challenge that limit of the sky? Where are you going to take us? And say, this is what we'd like you to do 9 to 5. But any other opportunity, any other area you see that your skill set developing into, you've got to really empower them to be able to do that. And we've been very fortunate. The reason we've had the exponential growth we've had over the last 5 years, the reason we've been able to take over the industry in the spaces that we have, and each of our individual industries that each company plays in, purely because of the fact that we have those individuals get given the vision, get given the dream, get given where we are going, and be able to run with it on their own accord.
Absolutely fantastic. All this reminds me of one of my favorite bosses of the past said to me, you should always hire people better than yourself. Too many bosses, they hire people who are yes men, that will make them feel good. They don't like the idea of hiring someone who's smarter, more intelligent, better, because it's kind of an alpha male. Well, oh no, I don't want them to be better than me. But the best bosses always hire people who are better than them, because that makes them look better in the long run, because they'll do their job fantastically well, they'll take the business down fantastic routes, and it all comes then back on the founder, and they get to go, yeah, I picked that person, and makes me look good.
100% correct. I've always said the weaknesses within an organization are a direct reflect of the weaknesses within the CEO. And if the CEO has got a particular area that he falls behind on, or the business leader of that particular company, if he doesn't be able to change that or bring someone in to cover that weakness, it's just really a direct reflection of himself or herself.
Fantastic, I love it. Well, before we finish off this interview, would you be able to just share one piece of advice? If you could pick anything to share with a young/new entrepreneur, someone who's considering starting up their own company for the first time, what piece of advice would that be?
It's a no-brainer for me, is just have that courage to take that last step. Every person I know has a brilliant business idea. They have larger than life concepts, and you talk to them 6 months later and it's nothing more than a concept, and they're still just talking about it. My thing would be able to be to a would-be entrepreneur, you've got their idea, you've got the tools. As long as you now have the courage and you believe in that idea, there will never be a right time. You will never have enough money. You will never have the right ideal circumstance. And as a result, make it. Just take it. Get out there and have that last bit of courage to finish off the vision.
Fantastic, I love it. Okay, well, Mike, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. The insight you've offered has been fantastic, and I'm sure the people watching will have been scratching down notes and nodding their head and excited to go and take on the world. So thank you very much for joining us.
100%. And Matthew, if any of your clients or any of your watchers, please tell them that they can happily follow me. I've got a business blog that I put up ideas every week. Just really tell people, what sort of opportunities are presenting themselves and how best to leverage those opportunities. My business blog is Mike, M-I-K-E, hyphen Eilertsen, EILERTSEN.co.za.
Perfect. And I'm going to be putting all the links to your website and Twitter feed and blogs and everything below, so people will be able to follow you up and follow you online and pester you with ideas and everything like that. So thank you very much. And indeed, the viewer, thank you for watching. Cheers.
And there you go, folks. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and a big thanks to Mike for being part of both the Purple Coffee Podcast and The Successful Mistake. Like I said in the beginning, I hope you will join us on the Successful Mistake journey. I have now officially begun the writing process, and I'm opening it all up to you and anyone else who wishes to get involved. That's right, deleted snippets, sneak peek access, and freebies/goodies galore. You'd be insane not to give me your email and allow me to fulfill your world. But what about Mike and his story? Such a great one indeed. And it really does go to show the difficulty in hiring the right people. You might be tempted to hire your friends and people who you get along with, the kind of person you could sit down at the pub and chat with for hours. And although you want those kind of individuals in your business, there needs to be those who get down and do the gritty nitty. For someone like Mike, who's a great salesperson and got fantastic charisma, if everyone is like him in his business, then they will sell a lot of things. But in terms of actually getting the stuff done and making sure invoices are getting sent out and people are being chased up, that kind of drifts away. It hurts cash flow, it hurts growth, and a business cannot sustain itself like that. So you need to build a culture with a variety of people, and I think Mike has done that with everything that he does. He continues to build new businesses, expand his portfolio, and in terms of a young serial entrepreneur, he's certainly someone you should follow. So be sure to check him out on Twitter and his website. I'll be providing those links below this video and podcast. And if you're over on iTunes or Vimeo, be sure to shimmy on over to bit.ly/purplecoffee26. There's all the links you'll need for Mike, as well as how you can subscribe to this very channel. If you like to listen, it's iTunes you're after. If you like to watch, it's Vimeo. And if you like exclusive content to your inbox, be sure to sign up to the mailing list. But please, 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 if you enjoyed the session today, and if you've enjoyed other sessions of the Purple Coffee Podcast, be sure to subscribe and also leave a review on iTunes, or at the very least just send me an email or a tweet and let me know what you think. And I suppose the final thing is to share the love, people. The Twitter and Facebook buttons are there for a reason, so don't allow this great conversation dwindle away into the nothingness ever. Come on, help me out. Okay, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and until next time, keep it sweet and sour. Sour? It's not a word.